Decongestion of custodial centers, formerly called prisons, has been a regular routine for many years. The federal and state authorities exercised their prerogative of mercy to set free inmates who had shown evidence that they have mended their ways. Freed to reunite with their loved ones and regain their rights as citizens, the inmates deter others from falling into bad ways. But this year, decongestion took a new significance, no thanks to the outbreak of the coronavirus, COVID-19. The Muhammadu Buhari administration, in responding to the challenge, etched its name in history as the government that executed Nigeria's boldest decongestion program. How did this happen? It is a story of saving the lives of the citizens behind bars. Ife is a soft-spoken investment banker who found himself behind bars at Ikoyi Custodial Prison following a business transaction that went bad. He was to spend 5 years, but luck smiled on him on 26th of April this year. He was informed that President Muhammadu Buhari has pardoned him and asked him to go home and see no more. He was shocked. At the Custodial Center for Females in Kirikiri, every inmate knew Miriam as a prayerful mother who had served 9 years in jail but was determined to survive her term. But the miracles she was praying for came sooner than her expectations when she was informed that President Muhammadu Buhari had set her free. Her sorrow turned to joy.
That day, I dey inside, so now they say chief they call you, now I call her come out. I say, make her come meet. I reach there. He say, what do they pray for God? He don't answer prayer. And I say, Alhamdulillah, thank God. Say today we won't go see your family. They pardon you, say, make you go your house, go see your family. Go and see no more. Allah Akbar. Allah Akbar. Allah Akbar. As I just they call Allah Akbar, Allah Akbar. Me, today, I want to go see my family. I thank God. My children, no father, no lady. I live. Every day, I dey cry. I did there. My mama, na maybe first pikin. My mama died. I no dey there to bury her. I cry. Now they say make I go house. God, I thank you.
Caleb's case was a different kettle of fish. A soldier sentenced to life imprisonment following a court-martial for murder. He had spent 20 of his 50 years on earth at the maximum custodial center, Kirikiri.
The record officers, right? He just come and tap me, say he has been looking for me everywhere, finding me. And I told him that we are here. So they now match us before the DCP. Then we'll go to the upstairs to go and meet him. So he now brief us that there's a signal on our respect from the Mr. President that we have been pardoned. So we are rolling on ground that day. We are jubilating. In fact, it's beyond our imagination.
These are 3 out of over 9,260 inmates granted amnesty in Nigeria's boldest ever decongestion program, a clear achievement of the Buhari administration. The story of this historic landmark is like the tale of the unexpected. Granting amnesty and mercy to inmates is a yearly routine executed by the federal and state judicial and executive authorities. The process was already in the works for this year when a strange disease, the COVID-19, swept across the world with a mortality that left governments wondering what to do. In the absence of a cure, reducing the impact in high-risk communities was the wisest step. There are over 70,000 inmates in 244 custodial centers across the country represented such a community. The race to ensure that the virus did not get to the centers began in earnest.
On a zone of office here too, long before the pandemic came, I realized that the only way we could manage effectively the correctional service and the custodial centers under it was to look at the centers and collaborate effectively to see the decongestion of the inmates there. One, the centers are already congested. And the majority of those who overburden the system are the awaiting trial inmates. So I had initiated discussions with strategic stakeholders from the Presidential Committee to Ministry of Justice to officials of the correctional facilities and my ministry. So we have been working all along. What the pandemic did in accelerating the process was to now put an urgency to it, because with the pandemic, it was clear they could not take any chance. The prayer was not to allow in the infection to get into the centers. It was difficult to manage. And for that reason, we were able to get the sympathy, the buy-in, collaboration, effective support of all stakeholders. Several meetings were held between myself, the Minister of Justice, the Honorable Attorney General of the Federation, the Chairman of the Prison Decongestion Committee, Justice Bello, the head of the corrections, the CG correction, and the result, everybody worked extra hard because the process required the head of each of the considered centers in Nigeria, 244 of them, to do a compilation of, based on the criteria set of those who qualified for consideration. And we must commend them. We must commend the commitment and zeal with which all those who needed to be part of the process got into it. And I'm happy that ultimately, at least for a start, a responsible and reasonable exercise was conducted, and the result is out there for everybody to see. You want me to really ascribe credit? The greatest credit should go to the president for agreeing with us to do what we did. Without his consent, what we have done.
The task of developing the criteria acceptable to all stakeholders became the challenge of the Comptroller General, Ahmed Jafaru.
The amnesty program is usually a yearly program that sometimes takes about 3-4 times in a year, depending on the request from the State Prerogative of Mercy and the Federal Presidential Committee on Prerogative of Mercy under the President, under Section 175 and 212 of the Constitution, as the case may be. So when this request is made, like this of COVID-19, with the coming of COVID-19, we're instructed to come out with modalities and the usual criteria for granting amnesty to them in order to reduce the overcrowding that we have in our various custodial centers across the country. The criteria are those who are ill health, likely to terminate in death, and that also depends on the offense committed. 60 years and above, those who have 60 years and above, not of sentence, but of age, their birth. And then those who have 3 years sentence and above and have less than 6 months to serve. And those who have also spent more than 75% of their sentences. That was the criteria that we employed. And out of that criteria, we requested all the states to submit, and we vetted them and sent to the respective states for them to, the state prerogative mercy of the respective states, to sit down and determine those that they will release. In the process that we submitted about the list of about 2,600 from our end, but at the tail end, we had over 5,000 that were released as a result of that program, because in the letter also by the Attorney General and Minister of Justice that he wrote on the directives of Mr. President to all the state Attorney Generals and the governors, as the case may be, they also urged the CJs of the state and the state prerogative mercy to sit down and see the possibility of perhaps expanding the list based on what was presented to them. Some CJs went in for usual jail delivery, and the others, some awaiting trial persons that were also released, which were not part of the original list that was sent. And that's why we had this number of over 5,100.
The strategy became the international best practice. Across Africa and the world over, decongestion was the preventive measure to stop the virus from infecting and killing the inmates. As the figures of amnesty granted by other African countries show, fast-tracking this inter-ministerial process was the task that must be done.
You know that the criminal justice system in Nigeria has critical stakeholders. The challenge was getting the Ministry of Justice to work with us in identifying those to be released, in making provision for paying the fines of those who were there, because they could not afford the fines they had as options to their imprisonment. And then we also had to work with the committee that is already in existence, Presidential Committee on Decongestion of Nigeria's custodial centers. These are very critical stakeholders, and they are the ones that, when we gave them the names, they had to go through it, through the list, and actually agree that those people did qualify to be removed. In compiling the list, we had to make sure that we did not bring out people that would still be a danger to society. And that meant looking at the offenses they had committed one by one. Those of them that there was still potential that they could re-offend, those of them that were in custodial centers because of very violent crimes, terrorism, kidnapping, and all such crimes, they were not considered. So it was a thorough job that was done, identifying these people, drawing up a list of those that there was a possibility of considering, and then getting our critical stakeholders, as I said, to look at the list and agree with us, and also work with us towards the process of releasing them.
One after the other, the gates of custodial centers were opened in April as federal and state governments released inmates to reunite with their families and start new lives again. At the latest count, no fewer than 9,823 inmates regained their freedom. A roll call of the states and the numbers released show that all stakeholders found common ground in setting the inmates who deserved the privilege free. Life behind bars taught many of them the importance of what they had taken for granted.
My wife was surprised. How come they're coming home? Everybody started preparing. Everybody became very. Me myself, I saw the outside gate for the first time in 3 years. 3 years, 20 days. Look at that same Falomon Awolowo road that I used to pass through to my office in Lekki. Became like a gold to me. Like gold. Started seeing car. I didn't see car for about 3 years. You know what it takes to see car, to see trailer, to see Okada. It was terrible. Yeah, so it's a very good experience in life, and I really thank the president, thank the governor of Lagos State for. I'm not a Lagosian, I'm from the Niger Delta region, and for me to be among those that were, that was selected to be in the beneficiary of that particular kind gesture of the president, I was so glad, and I now the hope rekindled again. My belief that Nigeria they really care now, came into my system again, that there's hope. That light came back. So the life came back. The president gave back life.
Others cherished the freedom outside the walls.
I call my children, I say, Aisha, tell your brother, say, they don't leave me. That was just Allah Akbar father. I call a brother. Now so they bring me to come. Call follow call house. We reach house and I call my people for village. All of the call they happy.
And others looked forward to picking the pieces of their lives to pursue their dreams.
I'm single. I'm still single because the girl proposed to marry. I don't know whereabouts of her. But my people, my sister, my sibling, all of them, many of them, they are rolling on ground, jubilating. I even the first day I landed in Ibadan, we go to that church there. We are rolling on ground, do appreciate, thanking God, do thanksgiving. Because many have lost hope that I'm no more in existence. So when they saw me, it was a shock. It was a shock. Numerous people, if they talk of me, they say, which Caleb? That my name is no more existing. So they saw me. And I made sure I did thanksgiving more than 5 churches on the Sunday. And all of them, they were jubilating, thanking God on my behalf. So it's a thing of joy.
Their current status speaks to the significance of the presidential amnesty to citizens affected and their perception of the administration of President Buhari.
President Buhari attack her, God go bless her. Anywhere he gets a problem, God go help her solve her. As he solve my problem for me, God go solve you for her. He no go see wahala, he no go see damo. He go shop with pikin food, he go shop with pikin food. As he gree make her come out to call shop my pikin food, so God go bless her. And only God na go fit to help me reward her. I no know the way I go take you pray for her. Anywhere they make for a life, make God help her solve the problem.
The investment in the correctional services demonstrates the commitment of President Buhari to getting the best out of persons considered the worst of all.
Let me say with all sense of responsibility that no administration from 1960 has given the attention to the Nigerian prison service as it then was, and now the Nigerian Correctional Service, the attention it deserves. We have never had it so good. Is it infrastructure? Upgrades? We have upgraded our infrastructure. When you go around, you will see that we have upgraded that. We have dilapidated buildings. Mark you that most of our custodial centers are over 100 years old. And some of the buildings are also like that, over 100 years old, which they need intervention. And this administration has come and it has provided us with the necessary enabling capital to be able to now intervene in our infrastructural upgrade. Is it motor vehicles? In the past, we were using our own vehicles, we are using our own legs, on foot, when I say that, to now convey inmates to and from the courts. We now have vehicles. We have purchased over 451 vehicles from 2016 to date. And we have distributed them over. And that has improved our capacity to deliver inmates to and from the courts and therefore improve justice delivery. You see the provision of drugs? We have provided drugs. We are no longer beggars in terms of drugs. We have enough drugs in our old pharmaceutical stores. We have provided the inmates' needs in terms of soap and other requirements. We have provided them with blankets, beds, beddings, mattresses, and the rest of them. So to sum it up, we are happy at where we are today, and we hope that before the end of this administration, the entire system will have changed for the better, that we have a very good penal system in this country that can be comparable to any, not only in Africa, but all over. Mark you that this Nigerian Correctional Service Act that was signed in 2019 provided two sets of services in one, custodial and non-custodial. And indeed, it provided a far-reaching changes for the Nigerian Correctional Service. In a whole, this administration has done more than any other. And I must commend the President and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, President Muhammadu Buhari, for his wisdom and for the opportunity he has provided for the Correctional Service, and we have fully utilized it. And let me also finally thank the Minister of Interior, Rauf Adesoji Adepesola, for his leadership, because he has really been on our net to ensure that we provide all the basic needs of the inmates, and also he has given us the necessary direction, and that is why we are able to achieve.
There is no doubt this is one achievement that a nation cannot forget in a hurry. It shows the milk of human kindness, the compassion for the unfortunate members of the society.
Well, the major significance is the fact that it was government responding to the emergency that we had on ground. And we had a pandemic, and before then we had congested custodial centers. So it was not a favorable situation at all. We had to quickly take action to decongest the custodial centers to prevent a situation where we could have somebody infected and then it would quickly spread. And I am happy to tell you that because of that action and government's quick response, the Nigerian Custodial Center today ranks as one of the few overcrowded custodial facilities in the entire world that has not recorded a single case of COVID-19. So that is a very big achievement.
For inmates of good conduct still dreaming of stepping out to enjoy their freedom by benefiting from presidential amnesty, there is still hope. This hope was confirmed by the Ministry of Interior when he assured that the decongestion continues.
We are processing another number now, because those we released at the first instance are largely convicts from the states. We have not touched the awaiting trial inmates. And in this phase, we are looking at some conditions that will affect the awaiting trial, who have stayed for a considerable length of time. We're equally looking at federal offenders who we did not consider in the other one. So the combination of those two categories of inmates in the custodial centers will lead to a higher number than the ones we have already set free in the first phase. So there will be clearly a second phase.